I had just wrapped up a trip to Big Sur with my boy Scooter, who had to cut that trip short because he decided he was going to go home and propose to his girlfriend and get engaged.
All right.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a cold water enema since the stream is
So I had to decide what to do with the rest of my time off. It was a week before the 4th of July, and I had to pivot quickly because I had a cooler full of food and no desire to go home early.
That's it. A few chili peppers. Out of all the parts I would have queued, that's the hardest one.
So I set out on my next adventure. I looked at my maps and decided to head northeast toward Lake Tahoe. Having been living in California the last 20 years and never visiting the area was borderline a sin. So I strapped the canoe on my roof and my dirt bike on the back as I packed up the Bronco and headed out.
You'll be my huckleberry, I'll be your bottom line. You'll be my slow and steady, I'll be your bottom line.
The drive to Tahoe, near the Truckee River, quickly became one of my favorite drives on the West Coast.
I'll be your wildflower.
Winding between the mountains, I can't say I've ever driven by a river, up and down a mountain nearly the entire way. The only thing I could think about was planning a future water rafting trip here, just to ride the glacier snow melt into the lake. My imagination was running wild at the many possibilities while I pulled over to pause and enjoy the serenity of this place. Maybe it was the sound of the white water rushing between the stones, or the smell of the redwood trees cooking under the summer sun. Everything was just lining up for this to be an incredible week. I was able to reserve one night at Emerald Bay Campground, which usually has zero availability. I arrived at dusk, decided to leave the canoe on the roof and set up my tent in the designated spot. They had showers, and I needed one badly. In Tahoe, bear boxes were mandatory, so I loaded up my food, slightly irritated that I'd probably lose half of it to the ants, as I threw some firewood in the pit to get a fire going. Stars came out early, and I don't know if I've ever even seen them this bright, so I decided to pull out my Sony A7 IV 14mm 1.8 lens and practice a little astrophotography. Everything about this time of night, with the light flickering through the camps from the cars driving in, created some of the most beautiful lighting and night photos that I've ever taken. I sat on the pavement, which was still warm from the day's heat, flickering my LED lights just to help my exposure. It was pure magic. After grilling a couple brats, I cashed in for the evening and woke up abruptly at 5:45 a.m. to a man yelling, "Hey, bear!" letting off an air horn and honking over and over. By the time I got out of my tent, I decided to just grab my drone just to see what was going on from a distance, as a large black bear walked by my truck unexpectedly. Just had a rude awakening from a giant black bear. Came up to the campsite. Thankfully, I had my bear spray. Also had my drone, which I'll show you guys later. But kind of questioning the relation to the bear box and the tent. I'm not so sure about these campsite setups, Emerald Bay. A little close, yeah? No bueno. Safe to say, now I was awake. I was still a little groggy apparently though, as I forgot to take the filter off my drone, so the footage is dark. She had walked the path, working her way from the dumpster, then over to a campsite where she crawled in the back of a pickup truck, opening their cooler, then wandering through everyone's sites looking for scraps of food. And I know it was a she, because a little bit later, a park ranger came through, asking if it was one with a collar, saying that that bear had charged them earlier in the week. It's kind of hard to go back to sleep after this experience, so I decided to put my Surron to work and go wait in line at the campsite entrance until they opened to see if anyone else canceled and if I could extend my stay.
Perfect, right into the rock. That's the goal. Scratch on the rock. Let's see if I can reserve this spot for another night. Hopefully. All will go as planned. The bear will have one more shot at me.
Up this morning to the north.
It was a long way away, up a very steep hill.
Gather all the shadows I have torched. Left all my belongings in the home that we had made. High above the mountain.
Well, let's make that 21.
I got to the top, and thankfully the answer was yes. I was so elated, and they were actually able to move me to an even better site, number 44 along the water's edge.
You make me want to go explore where flowers
I was deep into my Spotify playlist while cruising as I caught the sunrise through the trees. Riding through camp, I was in heaven. I had customized this Surron to match my Bronco over the winter, and having a bike that I could recharge with solar panels was a little extra, but also every bit as fun as it looked, as I trolled every 15-year-old that I passed, hopefully inspiring them to get a job and save up for something. As I got situated in my new location, Site 44, I decided that today was going to be the day that I put my kayak in the water and paddled out to Fannette Island in the middle of Emerald Bay.
All right, just changed campsites. This is a really cool spot. I'm gonna post some photos and video later. You can't even see it. I'm way off in the trees, right where the bear disappeared to. So that's gonna be fun. But I got the solar panels set up here, trying to charge the Surron with solar. And right now, we got only 35 watts coming in. Not bad, better than nothing. Want to get about 100 so we can get this thing juiced up, get the fridge going, and the rest of the cameras.
It was turning out to be a beautiful one, and I was running out of time. So I decided now was the time for me to drag that canoe down to the lake and paddle out to the island. I'm always overly ambitious when it comes to planning my shots. I'm working on it, I promise. I like to live in the moment and not set up moments just for film. So I basically had all of my cameras running at all times so that I could actually just stay present.
Ever try to walk on rocks? Take it to the next level and hold.
As I paddled all around the cove, the sun was cooking. There's something about a lone kayak floating in the middle of a vast lake that perfectly summed up how it felt to be out there. As I got to the island, I saw kids jumping off the rocks, and I found a spot where I could pull the kayak up on the shore. And here's where I had the most noob moment of my entire trip. The water was so clear that when I got to the edge, I thought it was probably about 4, maybe 5 feet deep. So I stepped out of the kayak, expecting my foot to land on a rock, and well, it didn't. I went all the way under, and the entire boat flipped, camera and all, soaked. Wouldn't be a problem if it was just the GoPro, but it was also my drone and all the batteries as well as everything else I brought. I was officially bummed. I immediately threw everything on a rock as fast as I could, taking the batteries out. Then I realized my brand new sunglasses were gone, and for some reason, this became the biggest bummer. As I walked around the rocks looking in the water, I just couldn't tell where it went. I came up with a plan. I put my GoPro in the water with an extended pole and slowly scanned the lake floor back and forth. After about 5 minutes, I pulled the camera out and went back to watch the footage, and I actually spotted them. Things were looking up. I dove in, and success. I found them. I was back on my mission to climb up to the watchtower on the top of Fannette Island and take in the view. Everything was perfect, but once again, I was sinking back into the quicksand of negative thoughts as I watched people smiling around me. Is this depression?
All right, we made it to where? I don't know. All along that side.
Solitude is extremely necessary for me, as I like to meditate and write my thoughts, visualizing each scenario. And on this trip, there were many moments like that, after which I just surrendered to deep prayer, which ultimately did help me get to at least a calm place, as I just kept hitting dead ends over and over and over. But the thing that frustrated me most was that the answer to all my problems happened to be in a quote from my most hated Star Wars character.
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
Why did they have to waste such a good line on a terrible movie? I began my paddle back to camp, and at this point, I had to change the grip constantly as blisters were forming on all parts of my hands. I got back in time to catch sunset, feeling so satisfied with the day. Decided to use my Ignic fire can in front of my tent to ward off the bugs and to cook some burgers, and sang until the sun went down and the sound of the crickets took over. I wish I really could tell you how present I was in this moment and how my thoughts were on this night.
I procrastinated on this project.
Tomorrow was going to be a big day, and it was time for me to check out. The next morning, I was headed to the northeast side of the lake to find the infamous crystal blue waters of Sand Harbor. I had brought a paddleboard, but hadn't worked out the details on how I was going to film myself on it. Maybe it's me, but visuals of a bearded guy holding a drone remote on a paddleboard doesn't quite hit. I hung out there for a little bit and decided it was time for me to head south toward Mono Lake and Yosemite. And I swear that because of this trip, so many long-term decisions were made that would later change my life. I originally embarked on this trip because for years I had been planning to start this YouTube channel and record myself in nature, learning how to film and photograph things, on different adventures with friends, but also pouring out my heart about all the things I was dealing with, things I was thinking about, things I was wanting or struggling with, and just trying to have a visual diary of my life where I could maybe watch later with my kids or grandkids. I had taken so many trips, all of them incredible, with some of the most amazing people in the world. And yet on this trip, I was all alone, and the wheels were turning. I had this empty pit in my stomach that had not gone away since I dealt with a traumatic end to my marriage. And that wound was just not healing. Every lyric to every song on my playlist seemed to strike deeper and deeper as I spiraled into all the parallel realities that I shared with them, replaying events almost obsessively. Yes, I know what ruminating is, and that's exactly what I was doing. But I wasn't doing it unintentionally. I was meditating on everything. I needed to push deeper for answers. I'd always cared about what kind of man I was going to be when I grew up. And I feel like that job never ends. It's a series of living life and then looking back and doing reassessments along with the adjustments needed. And I was basically walking around with a broken bone that needed to be reset. I thought about relationships that I had potentially wanted, potential love interests. I thought about possibly trying and moving to a new location, a new direction in life. Everything felt so long overdue, but nothing felt right. So I poured a glass of whiskey, and right on cue, Morgan Wallen reminded me of 7 summers ago, which did not help the situation. But I stayed listening to a little country music for a bit while the sunlight moved through the trees and rose into the sky, and it was pretty special. But like the balancing of scales, each moment's smile was met and matched with a down moment and a tear or two. The reassessment of my life had begun. I had poured so much of my time into so many different people, trying to unify different groups and be someone that brought people together. I had cared so deeply about every interaction and every friendship, and here I was feeling empty, like all of it meant nothing. I was officially lost. I titled this video The Loner's Guide to Sleeping Alone because let me tell you, I could write a dissertation on it. You see, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I don't see men talking about this sort of thing often. Navigating loss or loneliness, figuring out which direction to move in life, to date or not to date, staying or quitting a job, changing a living situation, cutting off toxic friends or relationships that you should have left in your past, dealing with grief that has extended long past its due date, not being given closure, being cut off by a family or loved one, losing loved ones, friends, family, to death, figuring out how to progress. It's not easy. None of it is. But it's definitely something that won't change unless you're conscious of it. For me, I've taken it one step further, and that step is to talk about it sometimes ad nauseum. I felt like every single one of these issues were coming at me like a freight train on intersecting tracks, and I was standing right in the middle. All the feels rushed in when the music stopped, so as my signal faded, then the volume of those thoughts turned to 10. The feelings needed to be dealt with, and now, like an unpaid credit card balance, they were coming back with interest. This wouldn't be the last time I would be in Lake Tahoe, but this might have been the most important time.